Hello, class. We welcome to lecture one. This is our first lecture here, so we're kind of getting off the ground with the actual course materials. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of read from the PowerPoint, and I'll toggle back and forth between our server VM to do kind of some demonstrations, show you, get some familiarity with the front end. And so, yeah, this is what the PowerPoints look like. They're also available to you online if you want to go to the to engage. You can actually view them there as well, so you're not stuck in this mode. And I've uploaded them to the class files, so both are available to you. We're not going to be doing the icebreaker. We'll have some icebreaker activities of our own. All right, so we're going to talk about what a server OS is and what it does in a network and an organization. We'll talk about Windows Server main features, some core technologies, same thing. And we'll also talk about hybrid infrastructure. We'll talk about both on-prem, cloud, and hybrid, which is a mix. All right, so what does a server do? What is the purpose of a server? Well, it depends. The answer is always it depends. The type of the business using the server. That's right. Yeah, if you're a data warehouse, then you surely have a whole bunch of, file servers, let's say, right? Storage and file servers. Size of the business. Yes, this is a good one because if you just have an org with a dozen employees, you may only have a single server that where everybody keeps their stuff, right? Maybe you'll have it as a domain controller as well, which we'll talk about, and which kind of manages permissions to objects, but you only need one. Now, as your business scales up, you'll need more servers, and each server may have a different or, kind of fancy certain niche responsibility and extent to which business is committed using technology data operations. Yeah, duh, obviously, right? How tech do you want to be? A tech company will obviously, leverage more servers than will, just Joe's mom and pop, corner shop or grocery store. All right, and of course, it's a provides a business need to help its operations. We have our heads in this tech world, and we put our pocket protectors on, feel good about ourselves solving problems, but really, at the end, what are we providing of business value? And so, server machines most definitely provide value to businesses, and that's why they pay us money to organize, administer them. Hardware, software. Okay. So when people say servers, we think of a big server machine in a rack, right? Or maybe a big stand-up desktop server. But really, it's kind of more the hardware. I argue you have server class machines, and you have certain hardware requirements that need to be met in order to install server operating systems on there. But right here. Your answer is right here. It becomes a server when software is installed on it that provides a network service to client computers. So, when it serves things up to people, right? Um, that is the answer. This is a definition of a client, by the way, that requests information and retrieves information from a server, the requestee. So think of it as, restaurant analogy. You have a server, which would take your order. You're the client. You ask for this, and the server brings it to you. So if ever in doubt, always think about that and you'll be able to figure out the client server direction. Uh, and yeah, non-server machines, Windows 11 and its predecessors, Windows 10, Windows, 8, 7, Vista, XP. I could go back and show you my age, but anyways, they're designed to be installed on desktop computers, not really so much server class machines. Server class machines, of course, they tend to be more powerful, have more CPU, more memory, more compute power. They tend to be a lot more fault tolerant, so they're made out of higher end components because they're going to be business critical. And yes, Windows 11 and its predecessors can perform some server functions, right? You can act as a file server. I can share files on this machine just as I can in Windows Server 2022, which I think we'll actually see in this lecture. I'll do it for you. Print sharing as well. Yes, you can share printers as well through these non-server operating systems. Uh, you can use Windows Server on your desktop computer. Depends. Depends. I kind of could offer some counterexamples. If you don't have enough, these cheaper notebooks won't run Windows Server. You'll get you won't be minimum requirements. So this is kind of a caveat on that one. But anyways, you get the idea. Hardware needs to be beefier generally to run these server class operating systems, and the reason is because you're providing business value and you may be serving resources up to many clients. All right. And yeah, so Server 2022 is a little less fancy, flashy. And in fact, the default installation, and that's point number two here, is Server Core. With Server Core, you only have a command terminal interface to it. So, if you think back to like, I don't know, war games or whatever, maybe old movie that you can think of, or think about just a headless Linux installation, right, where you only have the terminal, the prompt sitting between you and the computer. And yeah, it's performance tuned to run background processes. So a client's computer can access network services faster. So yeah, background processes have higher priority, and that's not generally the case. In generic operating system theory, you want the front end processes to have priority because the user is waiting for something in response. Well, on a server machine, that's not really the case, right? Because it's doing stuff, it's serving stuff up to however many people in the background is the thought. So that's why the background processes generally tend to have uh, more priority, higher priority given to them than foreground. Basically what you're doing in the front end. All right, Windows. Yeah, so Windows 11 does not support many things actually that server does, and some of them it only supports in a limited capacity. We don't need to belabor the point. Just know that yeah, Windows 11 will not give you the full functionality that Windows Server will. 11 is also restricted to 20 logged on users. I mean, wow, why would you need 20 logged on users to a desktop? That's out there. Now on server, you can have multiple concurrent connections for different reasons, and you just kind of spool up you purchase your licenses and spool up your capacity that way. Oh, sorry, let me go back. And yes, Windows Server will, like I said, they tend to be more beefier because they need to be more fault tolerant. And part of that would be redundant array of independent disks, which is RAID. And really, that is having multiple copies of your data in case of disk failures. They're less common now that we don't have the spinning magnetic disks, but disk failures still do very much happen. Load balancing, right? So you can kind of present a single unified front and balance, be it via round robin, whatever other algorithm, least connections, to multiple servers so that they can serve up requests to you, um, and kind of appear as a single endpoint, if that makes sense. And so load balancing gives you more throughput, more capabilities if you have a whole lot of machines lifting instead of just one to service these requests. And clustering, so you have high availability via clustering, right? You can kind of have fallback servers. If one goes down, the other can take over and start serving these requests. All right, server role. Server role is a major function that a server performs. You can assign a server role, as we'll see, either via the command prompt or via server management in Windows Server 2012. And really, it means serve role services add functions to the main role. So you can have, let's say, an Active Directory controller, and that will, there are several things that go along with that. Domain control, excuse me, and there are several things that go along with that. Or if you're a file and print share machine, obviously there are at least two roles. You can tell by the name of the service or the role that I just gave you. Um, but yes, you can add roles or features from server management, as we'll see. Server features, yeah. So features, generally roles contain multiple features, functions that enhance or support an installed role or add a standalone function. So feature is kind of maybe a subset or can be thought of as a smaller, a role to a smaller extent. It's a little more granular than a role, whereas a role will provide, many features generally. And a server can be bigger for a single role or several roles. All right, so yes, now on to our demo. Okay. Yeah, you see? So what I'll do, I'll come down here and oh no. There we go. Fake the old control alt delete. And it should open by default. There we go. Look at that server manager. In fact, I'm going to undo do the full screen because I'm really going to be flipping back and forth a good bit here. So here you go, add roles and features. Look at that. We, by default, have file and storage services. All right, so that's a role. That's a default role for us. Now, see, we have our dashboard. This just says, hey, this is what's available to you. And then you can drill in from your dashboard. Um, I do also have available to me local server, meaning this server, right? And if I look at it, I have a bunch of information about the server. I have the event viewer logs, which I can also open here. So it's just kind of an easy way to see, instead of drilling in here, you can look at the events here and the server manager. So it's a little, see you have a dashboard here and that kind of gives you a big overview. And that tells you that this sort of consolidates information about the server for you as the admin to peruse. So here we have some events. Here we have services, which is also, so this is called a snap-in, by the way, and we'll see that in a further lecture. Event viewer. I can look at, these are application levels. So if something went wrong with an application, anything, actually, it doesn't even have to go wrong. You have different logging levels. You see information, error. We also have warning, critical, etc. Um, and so we also have security, people logging in, logging out, etc. Setup, obviously it's going to be setup logs, right? Setup events, don't have any there. System level, and then forward events if you have log shipping. If you kind of consolidate all of your logs, you could have them on a separate log server, and you would forward your events to them. So that's events. That's your events snap in. Here's services, right? You can look here, here are my services currently on the local machine, and that's another snap in as well, as I said. Here are my services. So I can stop, start, etc. here from my services manager. Or I can view them right here. See? Stop, start, etc. from here, from the server manager. Best practices analyzer. Yeah, I mean, I can, if it finds anything that maybe it suggests that I could do better or that I'm not doing right, it'll appear here too. It's kind of a little cheat for you. All servers will show you everything that you have access to in your organization. Right now, I only have access to this one, and that's what IB616M, blah, blah, blah. So this is the only one that I'll see, and it'll basically be the same information, shouldn't surprise you, same information as we see in the local servers. But if I had other remote servers that I could keep an eye on, then yes, they would appear here, and I'd click on them and get this summary information for them. I don't think we'll go in here just yet, but we do. You notice we had file and storage services as our role, as a role, and out of the box role for this machine. And so if I go to this role, that appears here, file and storage services. Hey, then, oops, sorry. Yeah, then I have stuff that I can check out. See, look at all that. So, anyways, that's just kind of a quick look at the server manager. And yeah, add roles or features at the top. Oh yeah, that's a good point. We should probably look at the menus. Yeah, so add roles or features, right? If I want to add functionality to this machine, here you go. Look at that. There's, like I said, I could be a domain controller. Don't want to do that right now. We'll talk about that later. But a domain controller to control authentication authorization for the machines in my organization. Look at this Active Directory. Here's LDAP Active Directory, DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. So if the machine needs an IP address, it can come to me and I can serve it up to it. DNS server, domain name system. So I can be charge of domain name resolution here, name resolution. So if somebody needs to know, and computers don't really think in terms of internet protocol addresses because they're numeric, we tend to use friendly machine names, or website, right? Website addresses. That's the purpose of the DNS server. We kind of convert that request. Hyper-V. So if I want to be a virtualization server, what are some other popular ones? Web server, Internet Information Services. We can function as a web service. We can be an RDP server. So that's how we change the role here from the front end. Anyways, we can do it in the back end as well. This isn't a PowerShell class, but we will see some of those commands. I can add other servers to manage, right? I can find other servers. Um, excuse me. I can find other servers and add them for management here so that I can keep an eye on them, and then they'll appear in my all servers. Create a server group, and yeah, we'll look at this one later too. Connect the server to cloud services. Yeah, we saw the roles and features here, right? We didn't even scratch the surface there. There are some new ones that I'm not aware of, but yeah, there's a bunch out there, and we'll talk about a lot of them over the course of this class. This one's kind of tricky, but always be aware when you see weasel words. Always, always, always. No, 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 heck no. You can, if it's installed as if the server OS is installed, it's always a server. No, no. In fact, server machines generally don't always act as servers. That's almost never true because a lot of time it's a client, right? It needs resources from something, and it'll request whatever resources from something. So of course the answer is false. Right. While it's designed as a server OS, what matters is how it is used. That's what I said. If you request something, you're the client. You're not the server. Yep. And in general, that's right as well. You can make it not a server machine in general, though I don't know what in the world you would want to spend all the money on a server for if you're just going to, do desktop stuff with it. Core technologies. All right. Server manager, which we saw. NTFS. That is the Windows file system. We have others, EXT, etc. We have a whole host of file systems that have been thought up by incredibly smart people over the last, 70 years. Currently, most what you'll see is NTFS. If you remember, we had FAT32. Before that, we had FAT, file allocation table. Microsoft Management Console. That was those snap-ins. Remember, I showed you Event Viewer and oh, well, all right, MSC Microsoft Console. That's a snap-in. Oh, you know what? It probably popped under. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, there it is. That's a Microsoft console, MMC. That is a Microsoft Management Console, a snap-in console, MSC, Microsoft Console, or they say Microsoft Management Console, MMC. As was services, as we saw. Yeah, so I can manage all my services here. There are others. Disk management. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We have a lot more flexibility in how we manage our disks here, and we'll see an activity here in just a bit. But here are disks. We have volumes, which are, just think of it as maybe a drive letter. We have disks, which we add to volumes, and we also have pools, meaning we can sort of pool all of our disk capability and kind of partition it, proportion it as we wish. And we'll see examples. Let me check where we are on time. Okay, we got 8 minutes still. I don't want to get, I want to keep my lectures to 30 minutes, and this software keeps me honest. I don't really want to overload you with 3-hour lectures. No one wants to look at that. File and print sharing, yes. As discussed, a lot of desktop operating systems from Microsoft will do file and print sharing as well. Windows networking, yeah, generally speaking, non-server class machines can do that as well, although we do have a little bit more technology, a little bit more uh, availability to us here of some features. Active Directory servers can be domain controllers, which control, as I said, authorization and authentication for your networks. That's what Active Directory is really. It sort of keeps track of users and computers in your network and what they have access to. PowerShell. We have access to PowerShell on the desktop machines as well. PowerShell is sort of if I open a command prompt here, I'm old, right? And so I'm just used to the command prompt. However, we do indeed have PowerShell. PowerShell, we can issue simple commands. And we can also, if we want multi-line scripts, we have our integrated scripting environment. And with our integrated scripting environment, and we'll see some examples here. It's don't sweat too much, but yeah, we can create an actual file and run the file all at once. All of the lines of script execute in the when I click play in the file or run, I guess, but it's like a play button. Hyper-V sets your virtualization. We installed VirtualBox and put Windows Server on it. Hyper-V is the Microsoft equivalent. It's the hypervisor. So it kind of manages these virtual machines. It's your interface to these virtual machines. Cloud computing as well, yeah, via Azure. And storage spaces, yeah. Here we go, storage services here. So we have access to storage space as well, which we'll see with Server 2022. All right, so Server Manager is a high-level unified interface where we can, configure and also install, excuse me, roles as well as more granular features on our machines. Tools to diagnose problems. Yes, that's a good point. Um, sorry. Yeah, here we go. Best practices analyzer as an example. Used to manage all servers. Right. As we saw, we can create other managed servers that we bring in and can manage from that unified interface. And dashboard. Yeah, dashboard shows a list of tasks, the roles we have installed, and also, excuse me, if we have additional servers that we can manage, they'll be there as well. We saw it, right? This is our dashboard. Um, We have local server, all servers. Yeah, see, they haven't added any either in these PowerPoints, so they only have the local server. See, our account is one, and by default, it has the file and storage role applied to it. NTFS, yeah, introduced in Windows NT in the early 1990s. Yeah, NT was released in '93. I was actually around for that. I wasn't in the field. I wasn't that old, mind you, but yeah, I do remember Windows NT when it came out. User and group permissions. Yep, we can set user and group permissions on both folders and files. So let's see it real quick. I'll just show you a real quick example. Used to, you've probably done it before, or at least know the concept. But if not, we'll look at a quick example. All right, so if I just create a new whatever, right? I can control access to this file. System is going to be my kind of my system account now, and that's the only thing, the only person I have currently is me, right? Administrator. I don't remember the command. Is it get user? Uh, get users. Well, darn. Maybe ISE will be nicer to me, or not. Did I make that up? Hmm. Get local user. There we go. Local users. Yeah, okay. And well, get okay. Yeah. So this is actually what I wanted. So get local user, for example, we have administrator is enabled and that's it. There's nobody else, right? Because these three other default accounts are disabled and we have no one else. Now, if I were to add a user, it would appear here. So yeah, we only have the administrator user, and that's why I only have administrator available to control access to, and that's me. I don't think. Oh, darn, darn, darn. Let's see. Didn't mean to do that. Doesn't matter. Yep, that's right. Aha! There we go. So I can't even open the darn thing. Now I can at least read it. I just can't write to it. Uh, well, let's see. Oh, that was on system. Oops, sorry about that. Ah, senior moment. Those happen a lot now. All right, so now I just can't write it. Yeah. So look, you're writing it. Well, no, I'm not because Aha. All right. So now you got an idea. Right. So we can set these. This is a very basic,